Hi, this is Chris Simon,
Tracy Royce,
Luke Rodvold,
and this is the Redroom. Tracy, Luke, and I jump on every week to talk about real estate, acquisition,
a lot of fix and flip,
and design,
dispositions,
Airbnbs,
financial independence, retire early.
We always have a new guest every single week.
We're going to have a lot of fun, all right?
So if you're interested in any or all of those, make sure to join us on the Redroom podcast.
And subscribe to the Redroom.
Share it with your friends or join us on the Phoenix RIA Facebook. And voila, we're off.
All right.
That intro is pretty legit.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the Phoenix real estate market, it's an interesting little market right now. So I got some interesting news from friends, family. I did a little market dive myself the last week. But if you just look at inventory, we have just been steady Eddie in that 25,000 units. We come on here every week and I'm like 25,000. Well, guess what? We're still 25,000. It's still just I've been saying, we dropped down to 23, but I think for 10, 12 weeks, I've just been, it's 25,000 and here we still are. But with that being said, I actually saw Darren Tackett post this, and I thought I had a feeling this was kind of more what reality was versus what people see. And there is a bunch of high-end sales going. And those high-end sales, when I'm talking high-end sales, I'm talking $5 million, $6 million. And there's a really, really sluggish $400, $500, $600,000 market. And those high-end sales are really kind of boosting the market. So the medium home price isn't following all that stuff. But I got some good friends that I think are good remodelers. And I'm not going to say any names. And they're I got 5 and 6 that are just sitting, and I'm just and I only have one that I did with my daughter Bridget, and it's a nice little Scottsdale condo, and I know I'm priced right. I'm actually priced $10,000 over what the last 2 sales were in March, but I have 42-inch uppers, and I have there's a big step that I filled in. My unit doesn't have a step. They just, I did a little bit better design. So I know it should sell at that price. And I bet you I'm getting a showing a week. Not even and then, I won't go into the detail of the friend, but he's just man, I might have to, I'm going to get killed. And these are call it $400,000 to $700,000 flips. And so it's just interesting. So we got a couple people on Fidelity, so we can dig into the coaching that we're supposed to talk about. But let's talk about some numbers first.
Well, Chris, I think that you're right on, and I think that the reality is that people there's more financial sensitivity on those lower end homes, right? And so the interest rates not getting back to where everybody had hoped they would be by now has a bigger impact on those folks than the people who are buying more of those luxury homes. And that, to me, that combined with the consumer sentiment, again, more likely to be impacted by that, by the thoughts in the news and all of these things that are happening in the world. To me, that's why I would think that we're seeing a little less activity in that more entry-level market.
Yeah, and what's funny is the 10-year bond, it had dipped to 3.99 or 3.95, and every social media blowing up was going out there. Rates under 6, and everything was jumping up and down. Well, the 10-year bond did kind of trickle back up to 4.35. but really it's kind of, I mean, it's settled out there at that kind of 4.25, which is, just the index. So the margin might have jumped up a little bit too, but like, I mean, we're not talking about like a point rate jump to slow down a spring market. We're talking like a quarter or 3/8, but I mean, it's not, I mean, that's real money though. I'm not saying that it's not real money, but to slow down a spring, like it's really slowed down the spring. So,
well, there's always like some market that's like super kicking, right? Like when one thing is failing, there's another niche that seems to be rocking. And I think that, you guys had Brian North on here a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how you have to just differentiate yourself in your product. And in the super luxury world, that is definitely still a fruitful situation. And I think that if you guys didn't watch that episode where they interviewed Brian North a couple weeks ago, he offered some really great insight on, bringing the right product to market and knowing your competition and knowing what else is in the ground and what's being renovated around you. And, when it comes to real estate, it still comes down to the basics: location, location, location.
Well,
yeah. And Don, you had mentioned, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, that and cost, right? I mean, the reality is people can only afford so much, and you're more sensitive when you're in the, lower income part of your life, and probably those starter homes are more of your interest, like a condo or a $450,000, $500,000 house, it's amazing to think of that as starters these days. But you're more sensitive to that pricing. That $100 a month makes a difference more in your life than it does, to somebody who's already looking at the luxury life.
Right.
Well, and affordable housing is definitely a situation here. I mean, we saw a huge turnout at the RIA last week when we had the folks from Housing Alchemy that showed up from all across the world, and house hacking into creating affordable housing is definitely still a lucrative play.
For sure. I mean, I think something that's kind of interesting is, Don, as you just hit with, like, let's just say townhomes and condos. I mean, if you just think about the fact that, for a long time there, entry level, you could have people that were making $40,000, $50,000 a year, and they were able to get a townhome or a condo, and it wasn't a big deal for them to be able to make the payment. Where now, if you kind of think about it, let's just say your cheapest ones are on the side of, let's say, around 285 to 330 or somewhere around there. I mean, with the interest rates what they are right now, your payment on that is still going to be $2,400, and then you probably have an HOA on top of that. So I mean, like, you're talking about being in that ballpark of $2,500 to $2,700, $2,800 a month for a townhome or for a condo. And so I mean, that is not a small payment for someone who might be in that ballpark. That's maybe making $50,000 a year or so. I mean, that's a huge chunk of their income. And so, yeah, that area is, at least from what we've seen, it's been getting smoked as well.
Well, and from the angle that you had mentioned too, Don, is buyer sentiment. Chris already talked about how our inventory is around the same. The interest rates have stayed roughly the same. So what is one of the major differentiators? And it seems like it's just the posturing of, what's going to happen after this? Can I afford this? Not only right now, but for the next, however many years, and how is this going to play out? So do you guys see those conversations happening from an agent level down to the buyer level, especially in that price point, to have them calming nerves, talking about interest rates, affordability? Like, how is that playing out in your guys' world?
Yeah, from the agent standpoint, for sure. And let's face it, all of us, whether we want to admit it or not, have some level of emotional drive in us, right? And so when we don't feel good, then we're less likely to take action. When we don't feel good about the surroundings around us and there's uncertainty, that's when people are less likely to take action. And that's what we're hearing from so many of our partners, is that people are like, well, let's wait until things settle down. Let's wait until, well, we've been waiting a while now. We've been waiting until rates come down. Now we're waiting for these overseas situations to get settled. We need a nice little string of some good news. And I think if we could get that string of good news, I think that it can help people kind of get past that emotional barrier that's slowing them from making those decisions.
Well, I don't want to drop any bombs on anybody, but I mean, we're sitting here. It's 4:28. We
I
got.
feel like a bomb's about to be dropped right now.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second, you're in Florida, you're in a different time zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so it's 4:28. Like is in a date. So May's here quick, and then June's here, and it's 110.
Right.
And then you got the start of seasonality. And then you got midterms. Like, what does your fall look like? I mean, it's
not a pretty recipe right now.
It sounds like a bad one for me. So
what are you guys doing? What are you seeing in terms of agents retooling or having these conversations? Or like we've talked about stats and then we've talked about sentiment. So how does that mold together from you guys from a support standpoint for agents to continue with their learning and training and retooling and utilizing you guys as a resource?
And Dena, I know you've got a lot of feedback on this as well, but what I see is right now, the agents who are being the most successful are the ones who are spending a lot of time being counselors as well as realtors. You know, they're helping people see through that. Their social media is delivering that message. You know, they are skilled at conversation and being able to help somebody navigate and see why now is a good time to act. You know, the reality is that, you know, we've got some folks who are struggling out there and they're, you know, as far as agents go and just having a really tough time. We've got others that are maintaining their exact same numbers that they've maintained all the way through. And those are typically the ones that have worked on their skills to be able to navigate these conversations. It's not easy. It's not always fun, but if you can take the time to come from an educational place when you're selling, then I think that's the best way to navigate these situations.
Well, and like exactly like Don said, like education and really getting deep into figuring out like how to solve problems for people, right? So like staying curious longer. We talk about that in our sales team all the time, and like asking better questions, asking more questions to really figure out like when you are in those living rooms, how do you really help these people? Like, what does that look like? What can you solve for them? How can you make the next chapter look better for them? Because then oftentimes they can get out of the fear-based emotion where they're sitting today with the uncertainty and go into the hope-based emotion of the future and what that could look like. So, and we do a lot of education with agents around. It's not just a buyer consult or a listing presentation, right? Like it's beyond that.
Yeah. I think one thing that, and I know we've talked about it on here before, but one thing that I think always sticks with me whenever you're having conversations with you know potential clients is that, are you there where it seems like you're just trying to get the sale and you'll say whatever it takes to get the sale, or are you actually trying to figure out and solve what their problem is? Because when you become a problem solver, that's when the tables turn, because then you can give them options of, you know, what it looks like for what they need, for whatever, you know, given season that they're in their life. Where if you're just there and you're just a yes man, just saying, what do you think your house is worth? Oh, 700. Yeah, that's what I think too. Let's get it on the market. Like that's not going to do anybody. It doesn't do anybody any good when you do that, you know? And
hey, Luke, wait. I think that's going to blow a lot of agents' minds. What?
Right, you just don't take listings for the sake of having inventory.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Just taking them just for the hell of it, when it's like you're not doing your client any favors by doing that. If anything, you're going to get them upset with you very quickly because you're just doing whatever they say. And that's not a good, you know, and I'm not even an agent, but I'm just saying I've been around long enough to see like that's not what works. That's not what you do. And so, yeah, sometimes you have to have those honest conversations. I mean, like, you know, I've been obviously on the investor side. And so I have the same conversations, but my conversation isn't directed towards like, you know, a traditional sale. It's directed towards how much can I get you? But again, it's the same conversation in the sense where you're having that truly honest talk of what they need. You know, is it they're getting divorced and they have to sell within 45 days? Or is it they're moving because their job moved them? Or is it they're selling their house because they can't afford it anymore and they have to pull all their equity out of their property and figure something out? And so, I mean, everyone's got a different situation, but you can't just be that yes man of just, oh, yep, okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Like, no, it's like, no, you have to truly actually care and try to see what the best route's going to be for them.
Yesterday, I was asked to be on a panel. So I think most of you guys know Tom Ferry is a coach for Fidelity, and so we had a leadership coaching session yesterday. I was asked to be on the panel, and I discussed how on our team we learn to sell by asking questions.
Right.
And Luke and Tracy, you guys both alluded to this. This is where you uncover the solutions, right? So unless you ask the questions, you can't know what problems to solve or what problems people have. So if you ask the questions, then, and we practice it. We talk about it all the time, and we practice it with our agent partners as well. But we know that everybody's got some issue out there. Luke, you mentioned somebody's getting a divorce, somebody's get whatever. Well, if we know what problems need to be solved by asking those questions, then we can say, okay, Luke, well, because you said you need to have this house sold within 45 days and you need to be out of it within 45 days, this solution will work for you like that to solve that problem.
Right.
How does that sound to you? And so, but if you don't take the time to uncover, and if you, just say, yes, 700,000, let's go.
Right.
Then you're gonna put a lot of signs in yards that are going to be sitting there for a while.
Which has been happening pretty often lately.
Right, and now we get 25,000.
Well, and I really like what Dena had said. That snippet is sticking with me. Stay curious longer.
Yeah.
And I'm not on the agent side either, but to Luke's point on being in the investor realm, it's similar, right? They're cousins of conversations. And I think if it's anything like the investor side, it's not he or she who signs the contract first. It's he or she who understands truly why they're there, and then also can come up with a solution to that problem and be real with the seller. So just asking more questions instead of feeling impatient, or even in the instances where the sellers seem a little to push back a little bit, maybe not wanting to get into a conversation that they didn't think might have anything to do with their house. They're like, my house has these upgrades. This is what it's worth. And really starting to dive in to understand what they're looking for. So yeah, I really love that. Stay curious longer.
Yeah. And if you can help guide people through self-discovery in that process as well, to like, okay, I know that you think your pink kitchen makes your house a rock star house, but how many people do you think want, 4-inch tiles on their kitchen counter that are pink, and, pink walls and all, what other houses have you seen when you were looking at Zillow? What houses did you see that compared to that, on Zillow, and again, going through that question cycle, and helping people self-discover. If you can help them self-discover, then they start helping you solve the problems.
For sure.
Don, do you have that address? Because I think Luke's looking for like a Barbie house.
Oh, let's go.
Pink on pink. Sounds like a vibe.
Let's make it happen.
I can see Luke making it a theme house up at Prescott somewhere, and I'll be an Airbnb tenant. So
Hey,
in Barbie Dreamland, count me in.
There you go.
We'll figure it out. We can make it work. I can pretty much guarantee you that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to find that right buyer, Don,
That's right.
My dad told me a long time ago, it just takes one. You don't have to appeal to the masses. It just takes one.
Mm-hmm.
So what else are you guys seeing that would help educate agents and investors? I mean, Luke's here talking about the story that he's been in the living room, but it's the same thing. If he signs it up too high, then he can't wholesale it, or he doesn't make a profit on a rehab. And then if he can't wholesale it, he's there canceling at the end of 10 days, not waiting for 90 days for the listing to expire, but he still has an unhappy client. So it's still the same thing.
Well, and I think that it's funny because I saw we had an event earlier today with one of our lender partners, and I saw Ty Lusk over there, and pretty much everybody knows Ty these days. But I was telling him, I said, I'm probably going to talk about you today. I'm going to be on the Redroom podcast later. I'm probably going to talk about you. He's like, me? And I said, yeah, because when I started at Fidelity, I was at some place and you were there talking, and you were talking about all these books you read and all these things you do. And I was like, oh my gosh, who's got time for all of that? And now I'm that guy. I'm the guy who goes and talks about all the books and which one I like the best in all of this. And from an education standpoint, I think that, that is a great area for everybody to invest in. We talk about asking questions, and we often talk about the Exactly What to Say book by Philip Jones. And there is an Audible that is it's called How to Persuade and Get Paid. And it is Philip Jones doing one of his seminars. And I've probably gifted that to more people than have taken the time to actually download it and listen to it. But he is leading that. It's 4.5 hours long. He's leading that seminar by asking questions. And that is one of those areas where I think we help people develop, and that we're helping see results. And I don't think it matters whether you are whether you're selling furniture like he talks about during the seminar, whether you're a realtor in a living room, or whether you're an investor making an offer, that those same principles apply across the board. And really, if we can walk away from that and rethink about how it fits for us, that's the best thing that we can do, as far as our self-education.
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes I think in, a shifting market or a turbulent market, we end up, doing the same thing we're telling our clients to do, and we're therapists, right? But it just becomes interesting because, the crazy things that are happening out there in the world, I feel like the busier our lives become, because more people need us when they don't have all the answers and the business isn't just getting thrown their way, right? That's when we get in scrappy mode with them and help them solve problems. And that's when things can be really fun. And that's oftentimes when, different investment strategies are even born.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So what classes and maybe even strategies are you guys offering right now to agents and investors that you've seen become really helpful to them in this sort of market?
Yeah.
You mean today, yesterday, tomorrow, or next week?
Right. Exactly. In the next 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Till it changes again.
I have to tell you, and Chris, you've participated in this with us, but our Fidelity Sales Academy, I think, has been so good at giving people a view of different looks. And whether it be an investor or whether it be a traditional real estate agent, that to come and hear different people's perspectives of how they conduct their business, I think is probably one of the most valuable things that we've been bringing, because they get to hear somebody like Chris speak and talk about how, they can work in that space, but they also hear traditional agents coming in and talking about how they get connected. And the beauty is, you get to reach in and just take those bits and pieces that work for you and your strategy and your plan, and then look to your implementation, and that's what's really, that's really great. Like the discipline of making phone calls is the discipline of making phone calls. Oh, yeah. That's what picking up, so it doesn't matter what those calls are. We all go through that fight or flight. And when we're picking up that phone and making that first call. And so, hearing others talk about it and the statistics around it and how they lead generate through the phone, that's, in my opinion, the fastest and easiest way to your next transaction, whether it be wholesale or whether it be a traditional deal, is picking up the phone and making calls.
Yes, the Sales Academy is such a cool concept, and Chris just came and spoke last week. But it's people that are in the industry of all different varieties, right? This isn't just the people that graduated school yesterday. I mean, these are people that are tenured, but they're getting to hear from like the top 1% all day with different ways that you can make real estate successful, right? So anything from open house strategies to, Chris talked about how to work with investors and, basics of investment strategies. Steve talked about leveraging AI. We talked about talking with your sphere. There's just you name it, this topic is discussed, and it's from people that are at the top of their game. And we do this every single month. So we get the best of the best to come and be the presenters. And what people are walking away with is awesome. I mean, because they're like, okay, I can actually take this tool and I can go plug it in tomorrow and start generating opportunity. And I just dropped the links for Sales Academy in the chat. I don't know if the public can see those or not, but I also dropped our events page there too.
So Chris,
one of the things that is, oh, sorry, Don.
No, go ahead, Tracy, please.
A massive value that you guys add that I really hope the audience hears, whoever's listening now and in the future, is that when you're taking these classes through a title company, it's not like when you go to a mastermind and you're talking to one investor and hearing what works for them, or going to a meetup and hearing from a different person and that really works for them. And then you're confused as to what might work best for you and what are they niching down on versus what you think. Anyway, the point being, when you're talking to title companies, they are seeing in real time, daily, hourly, what's transacting, what's working, what's stopped working, where there's legal friction, where you're safer, better, spending your marketing dollars perhaps. So I would really encourage you guys that if you haven't thought about leaning into a title company for development, like this conversation hopefully will spark that engagement. So you really understand that these are really the people that are at the center of everything that's happening in the Phoenix metro market by way of seeing transactions.
You know what's funny, Tracy, is that our job is to then go ask questions too, right? Our job is we talk often about when somebody comes to us and they've got that inventory that's stuck and they're like, man, yeah, I'd totally work with you if you could help me get this house sold. But that's not our job, right? That's not what we do. We don't sell houses. Like our job is the title insurance, the marketing pieces and all of that. So what a better question for me to come to with Luke when Luke's in this issue is, Luke, man, it sounds like you might have a tough seller there. These are some of the strategies I've seen that have worked for some other folks. But let me ask you, how did you meet them? How did you get connected with that person? And let's lean into that. How do we meet the other people who are in similar situations? And let's lean into that and talk about how we get you your next 5 listings instead of the one that, I don't know, you might have the crazy cat lady in there. You might have the hoarders in there and just a house that's impossible to show. And those are things that are out of our control here. But and what we can do, though, is help you know how to talk to those other people or pull statistics that are going to help us find and uncover those other people that are similar. So those are the areas where if we're asking questions, we can help our partners be the most successful.
Well, I'm just hearing that Luke has a pink house with hoarders and cats and listed it at 700. So it sounds like the problem's Luke here.
Luke's got all the fun stuff happening over at his houses. So
I think another big one. Definitely, yeah. But no, I think another thing that that you guys can help with, that it was even in the news, recently, is just when everything happened with, the contracts having to state, certain terms and whatnot, where again, as Tracy said, this is stuff that you guys work with every single day, every minute of every day. And so it's nice to have you guys as a resource. You can come back and you can say, hey, listen, here's a contract that I've been using for the past however many years, but now that this stuff has come out, do I need to change this? And then, I'm not saying you guys are like the legal, counsel to say this, but you guys can at least say, hey, this is a contract that we've been seeing that's been working, that's been fine. This is suffice moving forward. Where again, if you don't have a title company in your corner to be able to ask those questions, you could find yourself in trouble.
Well, over the years too, Luke, like you've known, because even your contracts have changed because the landscape has changed a little bit. So it's like maybe it's time to add some additional verbiage, or maybe now if you're a licensee, there needs to be something additional in there because you're wholesaling the contract, and like, what does that look like? So yeah, I think, being that Fidelity is the largest national insurer in the country, I mean, we're definitely on the forefront of all of that kind of stuff when it comes to protecting our clients and protecting the consumer. And one of the cool things, actually, I think I launched yesterday or the day maybe today, But you guys probably all got an email saying we're now doing property monitoring post closing. Did you guys get that?
I saw it. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cool offering.
Yeah, it's free service. I mean, I think Fidelity is just always ahead. You know, whatever's happening, they are ahead of whatever's next and trying to figure out how to help everybody along the way.
Heck yeah.
Like the Phoenix Rio, one step ahead.
Yeah.
I was trying to be.
Do you mind if I flip things a little bit and ask you about your learning? I've heard your story before about, how you got started and things went great and then they didn't. How did you learn coming out of when they didn't go great part? What did you lean into as far as helping you rebound from a market that was suddenly you lost the floor underneath you?
Well, I just think that is, I don't know. And I heard somebody said, I like to just hire athletes or people that have that kind of just mentality. But I mean, it's just, I literally went from everything to nothing, like nothing. Like, but I mean, what are you going to do? If you got 3 kids, you don't have a choice. You just go. Like, I didn't have a choice. Someone said, you want to go drive houses? I need some houses driven today. I was like, I got nothing else to do. I'm going to go drive some houses. Let's go. But yeah. And then obviously just keeping a good name when you're in the gutter, like someone reaches out and throws you an olive branch. And you're like, for instance, driving houses. Like, I didn't think I'd be driving houses for a week or two. I'm like, so I took driving houses and then it's like, oh, here's an opportunity over here. And then, and then just kept going. Right. So, but just not quitting. You don't quit.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of people that have that amazing run and then they get on the downside and then they just get into excuses. Right. And sitting on the couch and well, I did, when you got 3 kids, there's no excuse.
Right. Yeah. They need eat no matter what.
Yeah.
Tracy, what about for you? What did you lean into as you were developing your career as far as learning? What did that look like for you?
Lots of doing uncomfortable things. I don't have a background in construction, so it was being on site a lot, spending my after hours, on YouTube University, asking a lot of questions, any exposure that I could, and not being afraid to show up even regardless of how anxious I felt about it. It was more meaningful for me to work through that fear than it was to be in the position I was before, which wasn't bad, but I decided I wanted to be in a much different position and just leaned into, well, that's the past, this is forward, and whatever it takes. Essentially is can't quit, exactly like Chris said, and just whatever it takes, keep going.
Right.
And Luke, I bet you can't guess who I'm going to ask next.
Dena. Honestly,
Luke, you've done, you've done wholesale, you do your Airbnb business, you do all of that. So where did you lean into for resources and learning and education on that?
I mean, honestly, a lot of it for, I guess getting started was honestly Chris and Dena and like you guys give us a lot of resources, when we first got started, in the sense of, being able to, when we put a property under contract, I could reach out to Chris and be like, hey, can you try to sell this for me? It just made it easy. And, when we first didn't have any money for leads and stuff, when we'd get lists from Dena and stuff. So, I mean, that's like from the beginning stages. And then as it would continue going on, we went pretty heavy from wholesaling into fix and flip. Once we had the money and the resources and figured out how to go fix and flip, we went heavy fix and flip. And so, when I went heavy fix and flip, it was a lot of honestly learning as you go. I mean, it was a lot of starting with 1 property and then moving to 3 and then, scaling to doing, there's times where we had 20 flips at a time going, and I never want to do that again. I don't want that. We had months where we had $130,000 hard money nut at the end of every month. And that's just not what I don't want that anymore. That's not the lifestyle that I want. But no, the biggest thing for me, honestly, is I'm a risk taker. I'm a risky person. And there's been times when it's gone really well, and there's been times when it's gone bad. But just in general, I have a high risk tolerance. Hence, doing these Airbnbs where we'll throw $300,000 into it for a theme. And it's like, if this thing doesn't go well, there's not gonna be many buyers for this, And so we've tried some crazy stuff. But I mean, just in general, I would say while you're young, take the risk. I mean, that's calculated risk, of course. Right? Like, I'm never saying just like go be absolutely insane and don't like put any thought behind it. Cause I mean, we started with a couple that weren't anything crazy. And then once they went well, then we're like, okay, well, I feel like this can go better if we do some crazier stuff. We can put more money into them because we already have the results. And then it kind of has, it's kind of snowballed from that point to what we're doing now. And again, it's all calculated. It's more so calculated now than it was at the beginning. The beginning was just like, I don't know, we'll try it out.
Well, you were also smart though. Like every time like you were like wanting to go after something new or like, but you didn't know what that was, like you would pick up the phone and you would call and be like, hey, how do I do this? Like, hey, do I need a contract? Like, who can be my attorney? Like, you were really good about, especially when you first got started, like, I don't know what's next. What should I do next? Like, and asking the people around you, for advice and support along the journey, and knowing that like the people in your corner are going to be part of your success, or in some of those cases, your chaos, and love you through the process.
Exactly. I mean, I think those are things that you have to do along the way, because I mean, again, if you just do it alone, it's going to be a much longer learning curve. It's going to be a much longer and much more difficult versus when you have people that are willing to fight for you and using them. So,
yeah.
I got one last question for Luke.
Yeah.
How much did you learn in all your 8 or 9 years of experience? I don't know when you started with Brent, but how much did you learn between June 22 and December 22?
I learned how to lose $1 million pretty quickly.
Oh, wow.
Pretty quick.
But how much did you learn?
that was work. June, so 2022, that was when we had 20 plus flips going at one time. And I've talked about it on here before, but we would run our average profit margin would be like 10%. And you don't have to be a mathematician to know what's going to happen when the market drops 20%. And so, 2022 was a tough year. It was a lot of losses. And it was a rough one. It was a rough one for sure.
But you probably learned the most in that 6 months.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yeah, there's no question about it. Like I said, you lose about $1 million in a 6 month in a 6 month time span, and it's a gut punch.
Yeah.
Well, the good news is Fidelity will not charge you guys $1 million for their education. How can they connect with you to find you? You guys listed a couple links there, but otherwise, if they want to connect with you personally or find out more about what you guys offer, where can they get that info?
Yeah, well, that's what really through our events is a great way. Dena is out there everywhere, just about every investor event these days. It just shocks me how she's kind of our little Energizer bunny around over here. I'm going on vacation. In 2 weeks, I'm getting married and
nice.
Going on vacation for a couple of weeks. So get Dena first. But
I'm like, so first of all, he's saying go to Dena's Insta. Which is called the Dena M. Jones, and happy to be a resource. We love helping people when they're first getting started in the business, and also through all kinds of successes in the future. And we would love to help in any way that we can. We are also going to be back at Orange Tree in 3 weeks,
May 19th.
And we've got Buck Wise, who is going to be doing a keynote. And Buck is, we actually had an event with Buck earlier today. That's the one that Don was referring to. But he is excellent at helping people create their personal brands and scale and turning that into sales. So if you are at any level of sales and you are wanting to grow more and grow in the era of AI, which is now, upon us, definitely come and check it out. He is going to give you guys some really good tips and practical application that you can apply immediately to grow your business.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, guys. It's always a pleasure to see you guys.
Thanks for
having us.
Yeah.
So good to see you guys.
Crazy Luke, great seeing you guys.
I know. Good seeing you as well.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your week, guys.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for watching that episode. And this is the start of your real estate journey. There's over 100 episodes and a bunch of playlists. And please hit subscribe before you move on to the next video.